Kelvin Hepner with RealAgriculture, and we're at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference here in Calgary, joined by one of the keynote speakers, kicking the conference off today with a message about conservation and stewardship and how agriculture fits into that. A third-generation logger from Montana, Bruce Vincent. And Bruce, you used some stories from logging, from experience in the logging industry. Apply them to agriculture when it comes to environmentalism and taking care of the environment. It seems over the last number of decades, whether it's farming or mining or logging, there's been a lot of negative publicity about the impact on the environment, and that's not necessarily accurate?
No, and the public for the last 50 years has grown increasingly concerned about the environment, and rightfully so. They want to protect the planet. That's our home, and we only get one of them. And some of the stuff we used to do needed to stop. So they empowered an environmental movement, but what they don't have is any kind of resource background. They have no touchstone to the ground, except Disneyland, Disney movies. They got 50 years of Bambi under their belt, and they think before humans showed up, wolves were raising orphan rabbits in a sea of old growth. They have no idea how the real world works. The wolf eats the rabbit, and they don't have a party right after that. But they're concerned about the environment, and they've been sold this Disney-esque ecotopia where nature is benign and always good, and harmony and balance, and humans are always evil, particularly humans that make a profit out of managing the environment. Farmers, ranchers, miners. I watch any Disney movie, and who's the evil person? Nature is good and benign, man is evil. The logger is evil, the miner is evil, the rancher is evil. So they've been sold this for 50 years. They're tired of it, though. They're tired of the doom and gloom, bongo drum beating, incense burning, planet is dying crap that they have been getting since they were old enough to remember. They're tired of hearing what's wrong and ready to hear about what can be right.
And there is a role then, that's your message to ranchers, to farmers, a role to play there?
Our role needs to be listening to the public, try to hear what they're saying, understand what they think their concerns are, and we don't have to agree with them, but their concerns are real to them. And they give us the license to operate. We only operate with their consent. If they decide that we suck, if they decide that they should no longer allow us to do what we're doing, they will craft a regulatory policy regime that will put us out of business. So what we've got to do is listen to them, hear what they think the issues are, and then craft solutions that are acceptable to them and acceptable to us. Because the way to save our rural areas is to be the answer to their environmental concerns. This conflict industry that's been out there selling fear for decades, they're really good at their business of marketing fear. What we've got to do is not participate in that and start marketing hope. And the public is ready. Their door is open.
Okay. Going back to your Bambi reference, we don't have to look any further than the wildfires that we're seeing right now, both in Canada and in your home state, when it comes to what happens when nature is left to itself?
Yeah, in fact, in the forest right now, the forest is managing itself, and people thought that would be natural and nice and benign. Well, it's not. And in fact, we don't know what nature's going to look like, because North America was managed for 10, 11,000 years by Native Americans, and they used fire. And when they are no longer in the landscape, and they haven't been for 200 years doing their management, we now have a forest that has more trees than it's had since the ice left. So we don't know what it's going to look like. We're getting an idea, 500,000 acres at a time. It's burning the public's forest up. We can smell the trees being burned in Calgary and in Montreal. So the public is getting an idea that maybe nature isn't always benign. And in forestry, that's coming home to roost.
And that same parallel or same situation would apply whether we're talking ranching and grazing and managing grazing lands too.
Absolutely. The future for a rancher is to take care of the land, the water and the forage. And we need to be able to express that to the public. We share their concern about those things, and we're part of the answer. Because if we don't, they're going to import their raw products, their beef products, from Mexico or Brazil using methods we quit using 30 years ago. They'll send us the stuff. But the public doesn't have to look at it back there. It's out of their sight. What we've got to do is convince them that we can do it here.
And do it better here than how they do it.
The safest, most
places,
productive,
yeah.
most efficient, most environmentally sound producers of beef in the world live in places like Alberta, Manitoba, and Montana. People want to make a green choice about where their beef is coming from and a food safety issue on their plate. They should want it to be from Canada or the U.S. We've got to make that case. I call it out-greening the posers. We need to own green. We need to be green. We need to be proud to be an environmentalist. Every day is Earth Day for us. But we've got to get that message across to the public. And you being involved in social media, holy cow, that is I call it the committees of correspondence. Many people don't understand why America beat the British, but it was because they had an ocean to communicate across, and we were galloping from tavern to tavern on horseback. They call it committees of correspondence. Speed of transmission
Twitter,
of ideas.
Facebook.
That's Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah.
So we can either be scared to death about it or be incredibly hopeful. Because now in my little logging town, I can poke one button on my computer and talk to thousands of people. So it's a great avenue, a new avenue, but that avenue has got to be used judiciously. We've got to be aware that people are listening to us.
So there's been a lot of discussion in agriculture, as in logging, about social license and advocacy and the need to engage in that over the last number of years. Why do you feel optimistic that makes a difference and that is going to be successful in the end, or is it I think at times it feels like it's a hopeless uphill battle too? So why are you optimistic?
I'm optimistic because of the type of audiences that are asking to hear me talk. All I can do is judge by what I'm doing. And it used to be I mainly talked about maintaining your social license to the choir. But now I've addressed the American Banking Association's annual meeting. They want to know what's going on at the ground. They didn't want an anti-environment message, anti-green. They wanted a new environmental vision. I do campus speaking nationwide in Canada and the U.S. The next generation is tired of hearing that their planet is crap. They want to know that there's an element of hope out there. They've been told since they were little they were doomed. They want something else. They want a new leader. The government associations are trying to figure things out. The Las Vegas Chamber of Commerce had me come do their annual meeting. They're trying to figure this stuff out, and they want to hear from real people. And that gives me hope. All we have to do is figure out how to lead this discussion and not fight it.
So you ended your presentation with a call to action, not just telling great stories in your talk, but a call to action to the ranchers, to the producers in the audience here. Can you fill our audience in on what your call to action is for agriculture?
What I ask folks to do is stick a new line item in their business plan right in front of equipment maintenance, and it should be for activism and advocacy. And it needs to be part of doing business, engaging the public, doing outreach, talking to them about who we are. And they can do it in any number of ways. 1 hour a week spent doing social media, updating the Facebook page, tweeting, going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, going into their local school and carrying the Ag in the Classroom box with them, showing a scrapbook of their family history, 3 generations of yeehaw. 1 hour a week dedicated to embracing the public that is concerned about us and what we do, and being the leader of this discussion. And if we do that, they're ready. They want a new leader, and that leader's got to be us.
And that doesn't necessarily need to be an overwhelming or burdensome level of commitment or
No.
time committed to it?
The number one job of the rancher family is to keep the ranch going, and that means make a profit. Understood. But part of that's going to have to be activism, and you don't have to do it all. What you need to do is your part. Choose something. An hour a week. Choose something to do. And maybe it is a Facebook site. Maybe it's a ranch tour, a farm tour. Do something.
And use the analogy of a ripple, combination of ripples turning into a wave?
Yeah, if each one of us commits to being a ripple, together we make the wave. I have a terrible habit of trying, when I see an elephant in the room, I try to eat the whole thing. And we don't need to eat the whole elephant. We need to do our part. And what I see in both Canada and the U.S. is agriculture learning from what timber went through and giving sessions on how to lead the discussion, sessions on social media. ag in the classroom going into the classroom. The tools are there. Agriculture is learned. But the producers have got to carry the tools around and use them.
All right.
1 hour a week.
All right. Well, thanks for your time and thanks for your presentation today, Bruce.